Wanda's bid for Sunseeker to Chinese pork producer Shuangwei International offer for U.S. meat giant Smithfield Foods. Chinese companies are indeed stepping up M&A activity. And joining us now with more is Rick New. He's the Senior Managing Director of STARR Strategic Partners. Rick, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So as we just heard there, Wanda's going to be paying about 320 million British pounds for about 92% of Sunseeker International. Why this acquisition for Wanda? What's the appeal?
Well, first of all, I think the acquisition is quite significant in a couple of ways. This is another indication, another great example of Chinese privately owned enterprises now leading the charge for its own global expansion. Secondly, it really signifies that China as a country, as a society, just taking one more step toward being a consumer economy, in this case, a high net worth brand and high net worth segment development. For Wanda, this is very important because it's a great brand to own, and this can be transferred back to the Chinese domestic market. I think it's going to help its business grow significantly.
But why specifically a yacht company? Are we seeing still a big increase in demand for luxury goods in China?
When we look at the Chinese luxury market, it's already about 30 to 35% of the global luxury markets. Although the Chinese GDP is slowing down, I don't see that segment will slow down that dramatically. So this will be a good segment for continuous investment and then build as the overarching consumer demand continues to rise.
Now you mentioned consumer demand, and a big push has been for foreign brands to come into China. What is the appeal in China for foreign brands? Why is it so appealing for the Chinese consumer?
Well, when you look at the Chinese economy just in general, especially since the opening up of China since 1978, the majority of its growth has been led by investments, especially in infrastructure. It really hasn't developed itself into a consumer-oriented economy. And because of that, you actually do not have world-renowned or even Chinese-renowned brands in many of the market segments here. Global Fortune 500, 70 actually have a last name that spells Chinese, but very few of them are known to the consumer markets around the world, even in China. So this will be very critical for China to try to lead into that global brand area with something well known around the world, maybe a co-branding strategy after you own it, and develop your own brands, not only in China, but eventually around the world.
Now, before 2006, the total acquisitions for Chinese company overseas were around 10 billion. Now, according to Reuters, they're up to between 40 to 70 billion a year. So what is driving this spree?
Well, it's already the world's second largest economy. China has to create 13 to 15 million jobs every year. In order to do that, the GDP has to grow at somewhere between 7.5 to 8% every year. To sustain that kind of growth, businesses, state-owned economies, privately owned economies have to continuously look for opportunities around the world.
Now, as we focused before in Vivi's report, the traditional demand has been for companies focusing on natural resources, energy, minerals, things like that. We're seeing a shift in that. Which industries do you think are going to be prime targets for Chinese acquisitions in the future?
Indeed, the SOE or state-owned enterprise economy for global acquisition has been the driving force until recently. When you look at the percentage, by the way, the state-owned and the privately owned sectors now roughly equal. When you look at that ever-increasing number for global M&A from China to other countries, including the United States. I think sectors like highly consumer-driven areas will be very appealing continuously. The advanced manufacturing area will be very critical, and this is again upgrading not only Chinese mid to low-end manufacturing capability, but also tied to the consumer brand in the country and around the world as well.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much. Rick New, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Rick New, Senior Managing Director of STARR Strategic Partners.